Hello everyone, welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm Chris Hussain.
I am Shanta Sipasad.
I'm Narmada Ramjit Singh.
And we're very excited to be back with you here, another episode guys. And of course we have a very exciting interview with Attorney at Law, former Minister, Mr. Prakash Ramadhar, later in today's episode. Paria Inquiry aftermath. And we're going to be developing that entire issue and dare I say crisis that this country would have all been invested in. And I want to also welcome some of you are new to our home here at Critical Conversations. We are in season 3 and we have been doing our online talk show. But of course today guys, this episode is now on Sankhya Network. So we want to welcome all of you, our new viewers, so you can interact with us on social media at the Compass Foundation on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. And leave a comment, like, share, and let us know what you think and join the conversation as we engage in a critical conversation. So on Critical Conversations, we have a sort of show where it is broken up into 2 segments. We have the interview, and of course, as I said, we have Mr. Ramadhar coming up. But in the first half, we have something called Hot Topics. So we discuss our week in review. And I was looking at the news, and I saw Miss Shanta Sipasad, the treasurer of the Compass Foundation, former national and regional youth parliamentarian. I saw that you were a judge for the youth parliament last Monday. So yes. I want to congratulate you on that. I think you represented very well. And I think this was the first time that I saw a former national youth and regional youth would have judged, I believe it was the 20th sitting
Correct.
Of the National Youth Parliament debate. So congratulations, Shanta.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I would like to congratulate all those young, brilliant youth parliamentarians. I mean, it was a difficult task judging them. And funny enough, one of our mentors at the parliament, she told me, she said, when the student becomes the master.
Wow.
You know, that was a full circle moment for you, Shanta. How did you feel being back there, now a judge?
I was caught off guard. I was really surprised when they called me and asked me if I can be a judge and be part of it. And I immediately said yes, but then I said, I am gonna have that task of judging these young persons, where I was in that position just a few years ago, and you know, it's really an honor and privilege that they would look up to me and think that, okay, I am capable enough to come and judge these students.
More than capable.
We're very proud of you.
Yes, I was one of the judges. I was joined by MP Vandana Mohit. She was one of the judges, together with Senator Lawrence Hislop. So the 3 of us had a difficult task. They were brilliant contributions.
But also, as we congratulate them, for the past, I think last 2 or 3 episodes, we sort of held down the 4th.
Yes, it was Chris and I.
And now we want to welcome you back, Narmada.
Thank you very much.
We want to congratulate you. I know you would have been very busy. We saw you in the Morning Brew promoting Goa, your spa and boutique.
Yes.
So I just want to congratulate you on that and welcome back.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I think our audience deserve to know where you have been.
You know, it was a very special passion project that I was working on, and it's my little way of giving back. I believe in affordable self-care. I think that taking care of yourself it fosters a sense of confidence and well-being that other things don't. And women shoulder so many roles and responsibilities in their life, and they're so accustomed to putting others first. And this is a way that this is my reminder to them, to empower them to continue to nurture themselves so that they can continue to nurture the rest of the world. And we're located above the Lazy Lizard restaurant and bar. It's on the corner of Rodney Road, Blanche Park, and Deva, and we hope to welcome each and every one of you.
And I have actually been there, guys. And, and I want you all to know that self-care is important as much as we focus on our mental health and spiritual health. Your physical health is also good, right?
Absolutely.
You got to protect the temple that we inhabit.
Yeah.
And so I think that was pampering perfection.
Yes. Did you
Pampering
enjoy
perfection.
yourself?
I did enjoy myself.
Okay, great. While we're in the congratulations topic, I want to congratulate the both of you for having a conversation that was very not only difficult, but one that for generations I have not seen adults be able to have. In the manner in which you all had it, I want to congratulate you all and let you know that I'm very proud of you. For generations, we have not seen anyone as brave and as honest and as eloquent as you both. And from your PRO, I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, as some of you all know, aside from Critical Conversations, the show, we are a part of the Compass Foundation. That's why it's called Critical Conversations with the Compass Foundation. And we are an NGO, and we have been following many national issues throughout the country. One of the major issues that we even found it fitting to lend our voice in support and stand in solidarity with the Hindu community during these hate crime attacks. And of course, we would have put out a release through the PRO. She would have put out the release. And we would have called it a hate crime, and we had an entire show about it, and we spoke about the numerous attacks, etc. And we wish to condemn another attack now.
Yes. We received some disturbing news in the early hours of Thursday, December 7th. Mana Road Hindu Temple was broken into and vandalized. We do not know the extent of the damage quite yet. TTPS is currently investigating. But, I've heard claims that this is modern Trinidad and Tobago where there's no such thing as religious intolerance. Yet we're nearing a murder toll of 537, and we're in the first week of December. So this is not only troubling, we cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that there's not an issue affecting our community and our population. When there's an issue, I think it's firstly important that we acknowledge it, treat with it, and find the best way forward. We can't continue to ignore this, and it deserves the utmost condemnation. We need to condemn all of these acts, and we look to our leaders to condemn these acts as well.
It's funny. Well, not funny actually. I think it's absurd, and I like that you mentioned leaders, because leaders in Trinidad and Tobago, I know that you all are looking on. Political leaders, leaders of NGOs, leaders of any group. You have a role and responsibility in how you speak with your population, with your membership. And when you try to downplay and diminish issues that are very blatant in this country, we need to treat this in the very most sensitive manner. It is above and beyond the attack, and as the Compass Foundation, we stand in full solidarity. We condemn these attacks, and we will be following this entire situation. And I know that some may say, well, these attacks also are happening to other religious organizations, and that too we condemn as well, because in Trinidad and Tobago we must never ever be downplaying these kind of things for political mileage. And what we must never do is call persons intellectually lazy when you yourself are lost for words in a situation like this.
And Chris, interesting. We saw, we have seen our leaders make these comments, and it has just paved the way for more and more attacks to occur. And the Monroe Road Shiv Temple is a prime example of, of this.
Learned that these intruders came very well prepared. They used the lock cutters, and they were well prepared to carry out the job they came to do. This was not a petty thief or a homeless person or mentally ill. These were highly organized criminals.
Yeah.
As we move on into our next topic, so there's an issue going on right now in Latin America, with Guyana and Venezuela. And of course, we will be inviting an expert, perhaps maybe in international relations and also energy, to help us navigate this topic in the coming weeks. But just to provide you all with some background to what is going on, and of course, Shanta and Nar, as many of you might know, the crux of the matter lies in border dispute over the Essequibo region, a territory of significant importance. And of course, as you are seeing right now, that is the region that is shaded. So it's a landmass that there's a border, and that shaded area of that border is where the issue lies in, or I would guess the disagreement over that particular piece of the land. The disagreement dates back to colonial era, but it has gained renewed attention in the recent years. So for some historical context, Venezuela claims a portion of Guyana's territory known as the Essequibo region, which covers about 2/3 of Guyana. This claim is rooted in historical tensions between the Spanish and Dutch during that colonial period. The controversy continued even after both countries gained independence. And of course, efforts has been made to resolve this dispute through international mechanisms. Notably, in 1899, the Arbitration Tribunal in Paris awarded the contested territory to Guyana. But of course, Venezuela has consistently contested this decision. Now, if we look in recent years, tensions have escalated due to various factors, including the discovery of oil in the disputed waters. The situation has drawn attention from regional and international bodies concerned about the potential for conflict and its impact on the global energy markets. As of now, the dispute remains unresolved, and both countries will continue to engage, I hope, in diplomatic efforts and legal proceedings to find a solution. The situation is a delicate one, with implications not only for Venezuela and Guyana, but also for the broader Caribbean region. What you all think about what's going on in Guyana and of course Venezuela with this dispute over the Essequibo region?
I think it's important that, you know, countries respect international law and the sovereignty of nations, because today it's Guyana, tomorrow it could be part of Cedros also. And I must commend Guyana's president for standing firm and, you know, not backing down on this, even though it can be intimidating when you look at Venezuela's army compared to Guyana. But I mean, I must give him kudos for standing up for his people as well.
Standing his ground.
Yes.
You know, it's really worrying when dictators such as Maduro continue to flout international law. It's unsettling and it's deeply worrying and troublesome, not only for the entire Caribbean region, for the people of Venezuela. There could be a potential influx of migration of Venezuelans again leaving the country due to economic pressure, you know?
But guys, I listened to President Ali on, I believe he did a CNN interview, since he's on my way here. He did this interview that would have been the day before yesterday. And of course, he would have spoken at length, and he's really trying to engage the relevant bodies to help mediate in this issue. And of course, he's doing his best in this being civilized and not drumming up emotional support by saying things like you touch one, you touch all, and that kind of behavior. I think that is important in this particular dispute. We are living in 2023. We are in a more civilized world. And of course, we are the western part of the world, and hopefully, and I've seen so far, that he has been very tempered and he has been a statesman in how he wished to resolve this conflict. And I again want to caution persons out there, because I've seen politicians in Trinidad, they run out themselves and they say, you touch one, you touch all, you touch Trinidad, you touch Guyana, you touch Trinidad. Listen, we have a role to play in this as being a part of CARICOM. Yes, we have a role, we have a voice in this, that is correct. But how we engage with our messaging to our population, and of course within this geopolitical realm, is of utmost importance. Absolutely. This is not a pappy show. I was also looking at you all know the America has been very clear that they want free and fair elections in Venezuela. And of course, it's a election time in Venezuela, and you were telling me about the referendum that would have gone into this. And of course, we'll have someone in the coming weeks to speak on this at length, and we dive deeper into this, because I know we're running out of time for the first segment of Hot Topics. But some persons have criticized President Maduro in saying that he's trying to drum up nationalist support to perhaps maybe defer an election or win an election. And of course, this is a hot topic that we want to continue. I see you want to chime in here now.
Yes, what's also deeply concerning is former Energy Minister Mr. Kevin Ramadhar. He spoke to the Express yesterday, and he pointed out that Maduro has also said that companies already operating in the Essequibo region of Guyana have 3 months to wind up operations, and this includes ExxonMobil and its partners, which means he's already making his terms known. You have 3 months to wind up your operations. I'm coming, basically. That's what it means.
Well, what's interesting about this, ExxonMobil is a US-based company. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen when the US decides, or if the US decides to intervene in this matter. And we know the US is an ally of Guyana. So we just have to wait and see, how it all plays out.
Mr. Ramadhar also said that Trinidad and Tobago has a number of negotiations which are currently underway with Venezuela, including the Dragon deal and the Manatee gas project. He says that we now have to reevaluate Manatee in the context of this heightened political risk, because it is Manatee attached to a larger part of the reservoir owned by Venezuela. So we have to also consider whether the United States would reapply the sanctions that were lifted recently in Venezuela. And the US Department is currently watching Venezuela very closely, and it can change its position, which could lead to consequences for the energy deals that we currently have. And if there is military conflict or the reimposition of sanctions, you are going to have another flood of refugees leaving Venezuela, he said, adding that this economic fallout would impact TNT greatly. So,
well, I know Mr. Ramadhar was a very good minister, and I have noticed that he has always chimed in on energy discussions, and so perhaps maybe we can invite him at some point to assist us in navigating this conversation. But guys, we want to leave Hot Topics here for today. Stay with us for the interview coming up next with Mr. Ramadhar.
Shock you to learn that he said, go in, words to the effect. The men, your father, Michael, your father is right behind me, the others are in, they have an air pocket, words to that effect. Would it shock you to learn that today?
And there we just saw Mr. Prakash Ramadhar, attorney. Of course, he would have been on his feet in the inquiry there, in the commission of inquiry into the Paria divers incident. So, Mr. Ramadhar, we want to welcome you to Critical Conversations. Good evening.
Good day. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be with you. It's my first time on your platform, so I'm really happy to be with you. Thank you.
I hope it's not your last time, because of course, as we seek to build out the foundation and of course the show, we do believe that your contribution to all Critical Conversations is so valuable. So again, thank you for joining us.
Well, may I be permitted to say, I love the name Compass, because I think this country really needs to find its bearings. And to see young persons now taking the lead in looking at our bearings, giving us direction, something I've always maintained, that we, the older generation, we have a duty to ensure that we keep a space open for young persons like yourselves to fill in terms of the future of this nation. So congratulations to you and your colleagues, and of course all those who helped you put this together.
Thank you, Mr. Ramadhar. Really appreciate that. Of course, when we look at the recent events with the Paria tragedy, recently we have seen that you called for the President to ensure that the Commission of Inquiry report is made public. So we want to ask you, why is that, of course, necessary, and with regards to transparency in this crucial matter, how you think this would aid the country? Of course, you know the country would have been very much emotionally invested in this issue. It is one of those issues in any nation that each one of us almost felt as though those were our family members in the pipe for those days. So why do you think the Commission of Inquiry should be made public?
Well, let me agree with you 100%. I've never seen any issue that has caused the gravity of a circumstance to bring it home to every heart in this country. Everywhere I go on a daily basis, people, that's the first question when they see me, what is happening? Look, I want to make something abundantly clear. We have to make a distinction between two events. One, where the incident occurred, causing the gentleman to go into the pipe. It happened. What to me is unforgivable is the failure to rescue. In fact, the prevention to rescue. It is inhumane, almost unimaginable for anyone with a bit of love in their heart and kindness and caring for your fellow man, to have permitted the powers that be to take upon themselves the authority to prevent the man's son from going in. And not just that, assuming that he may have been not in the best form. There were persons who did not even know these gentlemen, who turned up, who were highly qualified, who were prepared to risk whatever it was, intelligently, of course, to endeavor a rescue. They were prevented, and that is why I think the country has felt a deep sense of not just disappointment, but hurt and frustration. And that Mr. Ware, who was being cross-examined there by me, had the gall to suggest that they considered, after due reflection, that their actions that night would have been deemed excellent. That, to me, is unimaginable, but it's real. The reason I've made a call to Her Excellency, and of course I will be writing to the government, the cabinet, and the Prime Minister, to make known and release the report as soon as is possible, is that it is because of the intense interest, not just of the wider population, but certainly we are looking after the interests of some members of the remaining families of the deceased. And they are in terrible conditions, not just emotionally. One can't even begin to imagine how they must feel. Just hearing this, the accident or incident is one, the failure or refusal to allow the rescue will be with them to the end, that torture. But there is a real world consequence. These were breadwinners of the families. Until today, not a single dollar has been given to them by the state or by the state entities, by Paria or LMCS, to help them with their daily necessities of sending children to school, for buying food, for allowing one of them, their daughter, to remain in university every semester. That means scrambling, borrowing money for fear that she would have to return to Trinidad. So I think it's important that there's no luxury be afforded to those who have the responsibility to make this report public, because there is no time frame from which one could say the government must act, and it really is up to their leisure. So what I wanted really was for this report to be made public for the sake of all of us. But I imagine the recommendations, and the chairman was very robust in his opening statement, that he thought that the decent thing to have been done was to make an ex gratia payment without accepting liability. You can do these things. And that if you want to challenge liabilities, that's a matter that will ultimately be brought into the courts. So take your time and do that. But if it is that recommendation is to have any weight at all, because we've seen the amount of money that has been spent, and the commission Of course, I thought one of the finest examples of how a commission should be conducted. And the lawyers' fees for the state, 21 plus million and counting, not a dollar for the families. So that is why I think an early resolution in terms of looking after these remaining tortured members of the family, at least be given that, so they don't have to be worried about where their next meal or where their tomorrow will be looked after. That is unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. So I want a speedy disclosure of this report. There are many other recommendations, I imagine, in terms of how the country must prepare itself, something like a national operating center, where all of the assets and the expertise will be catalogued, so that when there's a specific type of emergency, they will know exactly what resources are required, where, when, and to be able to access it in a very speedy manner. I think that is crucially important. And many other recommendations I could imagine as to how we prevent these occurrences, and in the event that they do, how we deal with them. So it is in the benefit of all of us for that report to be made public as soon as is possible. And every single day that passes beyond a certain time frame, there will be high suspicion, as there would already have been suspicion that this report could be doctored. I can't imagine that being so in the circumstances where the chairman has basically made it clear that he cannot be bought. Nobody expected that he could be, but he made it clear. And with a man like Ramesh Lawrence Maraj as counsel to the commission, I would dare anyone to try to interfere, or as we say, sanitize that report. I can't imagine that happening, and I'm not making a suggestion that it will. But as the longer it takes for it to be put out there, there'll be growing suspicion, and that is not a good thing. Thank you.
As the attorney for the families, what legal recourse are you all considering to get any sort of compensation for the families?
Well, let me put on the record here. We have written to Paria and LMCS pre-action protocol letters. Paria has responded that they are not at all liable. And we were prepared early this year to file actions in the High Court, but we thought it more prudent that the Commission had engaged itself and had given commitments as to when they would deliver their report, that it would be better if we waited to see what the Commission itself would have said, because those recommendations are recommendations of a Commission of Inquiry put together by Her Excellency the President, and they must carry weight. And now that the Chairman himself has said that the decent thing to do is to make an ex gratia payment, we could possibly avoid years of litigation. And the state and Paria would have unlimited resources. And I want to congratulate all my colleagues on our side who have taken a commitment to not charge a single cent in this matter, so that we would have to carry it for years if it is like that. And I always bring to bear the knowledge that we have of a case that Mr. Larry Lala did, and where WASA's negligence caused the destruction of a multi-million-dollar home. They went to High Court. Mr. Lala was successful there. WASA appealed to the Court of Appeal. I can't imagine how much money was paid in fees. The Court of Appeal dismissed WASA's appeal, and they took it to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council themselves, at a level of scorn, dismissed the appeal, at the end of which WASA was ordered to pay. But by then, years had passed. And had it not been for the fortitude of counsel to go forward to the highest court, then one could only have imagined what would have happened. And I do not want that obscenity to be part of this most sacred effort to bring some level of closure, some level of justice to the families.
No. Mr. Ramadhar, you spoke earlier on about you do intend, well, you're speaking about the president, but you do intend also to speak with the government about making this public, the report that is, but the inquiry report. Just to go back, I want to get your comment on what you thought, and I don't want to revisit the inquiry, because of course that'd be a lot to discuss here. We want to congratulate you as well. We think that you did a very excellent job in representing the families, and how you, I think that was a moment, it was it was almost like a movie where persons were sitting, we were seated in our homes and our cars listening on, if you were at work, listening on just to hear how you would have advocated. So we want to thank you for that, for your service. How would you assess the government's response though to this Paria incident so far? What would you say about their response?
All right, first of all, thank you for what you said. I come from the old school. I learned at the feet of the great Ashford Synanon. You may not know, but research who he was. Frank Solomon, and of course my guru in the law, Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, who I've worked with for 30 odd years. And I spiritually know that any professional who takes on the responsibility to deal with anybody's circumstance, whether it be medical or legal, that's a sacred duty, and that you must give all that you can. And that is a tradition I have grown up with, and that is a tradition I want to see many other lawyers appreciate and understand. To your question, how do I gauge a government's effort? First of all, I like to be fair, and I want to thank the government of Trinidad and Tobago for having put forward a commission of inquiry. Had they not, whatever the reasons, whether they were forced to or otherwise, we had one of the finest examples of how a commission of inquiry should be run. The chairman himself was exemplary. He was strong, he was focused, and he very early on knew that this was not going to be a whitewash, which was a lot of persons' belief and suspicions. When they appointed Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj and his team as counsel, I felt gratified because I knew once he's there, no stone will be left unturned, and that whatever need to come into the light would be. Having said that, I'm a bit disappointed, however, that Paria, with enormous resources available to them, would have taken to their lawyers a position of non-liability. We are quite clear, whether it is Paria or LMCS or Paria and LMCS, they are jointly and severally liable. And that if the management took a position that they were not going to settle the matter, then, and I'm not being boastful, I sat in a cabinet where wherever there was a problem, the cabinet will deal with it. And where there was an injustice, the cabinet will say, look, fix that and let the chips fall where they will eventually. It is not too late, and why the timing is so fortunate that the Commission's report is at hand and in the hands of the cabinet. And the recommendations have been reflected, to repeat myself, that the right and decent thing to do is to make an ex gratia payment. I would hope and expect that the government, because this is a state entity, state corporation, a state body, Paria, that the board is appointed by the government itself, the chairman is appointed by the government, give directions as to how the matter should be treated, notwithstanding whatever advice the lawyers would have given. Because under cross-examination to Mr. Mushtaq, the general manager, I asked him, I said, what have you done to help these families? He said, we made some effort. Of course, he gave them a little bit of something akin to that. But that their lawyers told them not to engage further. I can understand that in terms of litigation and liability. But there's a higher responsibility here than just in the courts. There's an ethical standard that this country must abide by. You are young people, and this is why I'm so grateful that you do what you do. The Trinidad and Tobago I grew up in, and many others who may be young but still do recall, was a country with conscience, with a caring, generous approach to neighbors. And I do not wish to see now entrenched in those who do under in our name, state entities, that they approach this as if they are robotic and that whatever they deal with has no human consequence. Because we are a nation of people, and I do not like to hear people speak about being patriotic when they do not love their people, when they do not love Trinidadians and Tobagonians. Of course, we must love the land, because for all of us who were born here, the first breath of air, the first drop of water we would have ever had came from this nation's resources. The caring that we had in our schools came from our teachers. And that is why people must be put first and foremost in every decision. And there's a fix for it. So, coming back to the basics. having been in government, I know it takes some time, and I have already prepared, but I will not yet release a letter to the Prime Minister's office seeking a copy of the report for us as lawyers, and also for the release of the report either through the Parliament, so that all of our citizens can know what is happening. So we give them a decent period of time, and we expect that when the cabinet would have had sufficient time, Thursdays is when cabinet would sit. They got a report a week plus ago. So we say, and how things would most likely occur, they will send it to what we call FNGP, Finance and General Purposes Committee for study, report back to the cabinet. So certainly within a month, they must be in a position, and they must put themselves in a position, and must have made a decision as to how and when, and as quickly as is possible, certainly, for the release of this report.
In regards to safety regulations and oversight, in your legal assessment, do you believe there were lapses in safety regulations or oversights that contributed to the Paria tragedy? And how can such incidents be prevented in the future?
Absolutely, there will. Just by the mere fact of the death of these men shows that it was a terrible, catastrophic failure of the system. One, in relation to how the incident occurred, where they were sucked into the pipe, there was an oversight regime that failed. There were procedural failures, so that had they been followed to the T, all of them, with the necessary oversight to confirm that the procedures were followed correctly, that incident would not have occurred. In terms then of the rescue, you had persons who did not have, in my humble view, the strength, and I'm being very generous to them, or the training, or a combination of strength, training, and commitment to saving human life, who took the responsibility and failed miserably. And that is why my recommendation, and I'm sure it is will be echoed by many right-thinking people, do not leave it to one small group to make decisions that could cause the extinction of life, the extinguishing of life. In the normal course of events, where there's an accident, we call it police, we call fire. Certainly, there's a specialized need, for instance, in refineries. And that is why something akin to what we had in a National Operating Center, where all of the resources, all of the expertise in many different facets could be available. So I imagine one of the recommendations will be that. The chairman made comment also about the Bureau of Standards efforts to put into place standards in diving and so, that had not reached where it should be. And I imagine now there should be an accelerated effort to revisit our laws, the standards that are required, particularly in relation to refineries and with specific focus on diving and underwater issues. What is very glaring, though, is that the very persons who took the responsibility that evening, even at the time of the commission's sitting, which was a year plus after the incident, we already failed, but they are all still on their jobs, considering themselves to have acted as excellent. And I shudder to imagine what may occur if there is an accident of similar gravity. These very persons who have proven themselves failures, with all due respect to them, still on the job, still with the responsibility and the power to do these things. So that is why I think the quicker we get to the end point, which is the recommendations, and the implementation. The recommendations are one thing, but the implementation of those would be quite another. But at least we'll have some direction that we must attend to. So in terms of the failures, yes, there were. In terms of the fixes, yes, we can. And in terms of how soon, as soon as possible.
When the incident initially happened, there was this public perception that there was lack of accountability and transparency, and you mentioned that the board is government appointed, yet the board remained as the board it is. Why do you think the government hasn't chosen to remove the board?
See, once again, maybe it's a difficulty I would have, having been in government. You see, to give that would be difficult for them, because then in a way, it may appear to the wider population that the board was at fault and therefore liable. So I can understand that. But I agree with you. In the event of something as catastrophic as this, there should be no concern about political good-lookingness, if I may use that term, but really deal with all those who fail on that day and remove them and replace them by persons who we expect and hope would be better able to deal with situations like that. There is no doubt, as your colleague indicated, that there were systemic failures. But the very persons who allow the systemic failures continue to sit where they are, including the board. I'm not calling for a moment for my decision or yours to supersede. All I'm asking for is what is a decent and proper thing. During the inquiry itself, as you know, when we were in government under the People's Partnership, we had set a standard that if there is any wrongdoing or allegations of wrongdoing or impropriety, you should remove yourself from a position of authority and power to let an investigation go forward, and at the end of which, if all is said clear for you, then you can return. We had an inquiry where all of the players continued to be where they were, and even after the inquiry, they still sit there. So maybe now there'll be an inflection point with the release of the report that might be the opportune moment for the government itself to do the noble, proper thing and to remove all those who may have contributed by either actions or failures for this catastrophe to occur.
Correct, because as you mentioned, it creates a vacuum for, these conspiracy theories or suspicion, and that the overall public perception of, the entire issue.
Yes, in fact, I remember very vividly that days after the incident and during the inquiry, there were these theories of material being removed, equipment being changed, and a host of things. Today, I can't tell you if there was merit in all of the suspicions, but you do give that room when there's no independent oversight in the moment, moving forward to, first of all, preserve the evidence, and two, to ensure that there's no limitation on the proper investigation. And that's why the Commission of Inquiry, to me, was a breath of fresh air, manned by the personnel who were there. Now, having said all of that, there's another issue. OSHA, who has a responsibility to investigate all industrial accidents and so. And there is in the public domain a concern that 6 months after a report is concluded, and in particular, for instance, handed over to Your Excellency the President, after 6 months they may not be able to file charges in the courts. So that is a concern that may have real validity, and therefore one would expect certainly within a couple of months, and certainly by 6 months' time from the date that is handed over and completed and handed over, that the report be made public and OSHA to do what they must. It is also my view that OSHA need not wait for the Commission's report to be made public. They had a duty to conduct investigations independent of anyone else. That is their lawful duty. And therefore, there is no restriction, in my humble view, for them to take whatever action they wish to take.
Mr. Ramadhar, in closing, what is your final statement or final remarks to Trinidad and Tobago looking on? What you'd like to leave with them?
In a way, these men's lives should be of value to our future. It must be that we learn lots, that their lives were not given in vain, and that the standards that we set today will in a way mitigate and prevent possible future disasters like this, or even worse. And that in their name will be new legislative marks that make those who have power and authority accountable for their failure to act in a proper way. I was pained because I have always been a defense lawyer all of my life, and as a child too, I was always defending people. I've never prosecuted nor ever intend to. But in this particular case, I was moved to recommend criminal prosecution, because I think that one of the ways that we can deal with a society's failures is by legislative change and by the strength of consequences. And you cannot have now a slap on the wrist to some, and at the end of which the taxpayers bear the burden, and those who had the responsibility saunter on without conscience. Because in that inquiry, I had cause to tell someone about their crocodile tears. Because in my view, there was a lack of sincere care and concern. They were more concerned about liability than lives. And they acted in such a way to mitigate dangers, which are always inherent in life, to zero, almost zero, before they would take action. They waited for cameras they knew full well that couldn't come for hours, when under a cross-examination they admitted they knew full well at best they had minutes, if not hours, for certainty of death for these men. They knew they were alive. If there was doubt, when our survivor Christopher came out, they knew full well that they were alive, and then there was banging in the pipes, so they knew that men were alive then. But as we say, they allowed, like Nero, Rome to burn while they fiddled and floundered. We cannot permit that. So that we must give authority and responsibility to persons who have what it takes, the courage, the intelligence, the expertise to do what is necessary to save life. That's the highest one can do in the event of a disaster. Save the lives, not concern yourself by liability. Yes, thank you very much.
Let their lives not be in vain. There you have it, Mr. Prakash Ramadhar, attorney at law. We'll be back with more. Thank you. Welcome back to Critical Conversations. So thank you for staying with us, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Of course, as we seek to improve our content and our outreach to you, we want you to follow us and like us on Facebook. We're on Facebook, we are on TikTok, and we are also on Instagram. You can also share with us any comments, how you feel, what are your views, and get involved in the critical conversation. Even if you'd like to be a little long-winded and send us an email, we will read that email. So, for those few words, we're going to be seeing you all next week. This has been Critical Conversations.